who am I going to become and what am I going to achieve? So symbolism is everything. And here I carry a walking stick with a eagle on the top, and there might be a knife inside. It was fucking tough, man. McDonald's sucked.
Most people dream of millions. Adam Nasir built a $50 million tech empire after flipping burgers at McDonald's. He taught himself 5 languages. He retired in his 30s, and he sacrificed more than most people are willing to. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a brutal, honest look at what it really takes to win. If you've ever wondered how far persistence can take you, this episode will make you rethink your limits.
Uncomfort is actually one of the things that can help grow you. It's an opportunity, but a lot of times in life, one of the best things you can do is just get outside of your comfort zone, try something new, take that chance, go for that business, travel, whatever the case may be, and remove anything that's holding you back.
I think we're in a massive trust recession. People do not trust anyone anymore.
Yeah. You're marked as a man by your achievements in different areas, not just achievements financially. What you've achieved outside, your skills, maybe you're a great sportsman, or you've achieved some record in doing something, speaking multiple languages. Those are the things that people remember.
Before we dive into this episode, I want to take a second to speak about our sponsor, Pith and Stem, who we are thrilled to have on this journey with us. As someone who is always looking for ways to improve my healthy hustle, Pith and Stem's drop-top desk stood out to me as the best full work-from-home solution on the market. The world of work from home is changing, and a laptop or screen perched on your lap or dining room table isn't enough anymore. It's imperative that we have a solution at home that matches our productivity station that we can have in our office. But of course, homes weren't made to be worked in, and not all of us want a dedicated study. That's why I'm so happy that Pith and Stem created this perfect solution. They designed this desk with both the needs of the professional and their home in mind. It's perfect because it allows me to have a full productivity station that suits my needs and helps me get the most out of every minute that I spend at it, not only so I work comfortably, but that I actually enjoy it. And the best thing about DropTop, I can close and lock it at the end of the day to keep work and home separate. And it looks awesome on the wall. You can get your DropTop desk anywhere in the world from pithandstem.com, or just Google DropTop and you'll find it pretty quickly.
Thank you so much for listening and watching these episodes. It feels like you're really part of the journey with us. And can I ask you one favor to help us grow even further? You may have noticed that we've been getting some amazing guests on. We've got more listeners than ever. But you can help us continue to give value to you by clicking that subscribe or follow button below. It helps us to show everyone else how well we're doing, and therefore give you more value by getting bigger guests and take the podcast on the road. It takes you 2 seconds and it's completely free, and it helps us more than you know. Thank you.
Persistence is a word that came up a lot when we were researching you, Adam. What role has that word played in your journey up to now?
Everything, brother. So persistence, I mean, this is something that I think is a requirement, of any level of success. I mean, anything worth having, you got to really work for. So for me in my story, this is just quintessential. I mean, coming from a kid that 20 years ago, I was working McDonald's drive-through and making $6.15 an hour. I mean, if they would have paid me any less, they probably could have. It would have been illegal. And just that mindset of never giving up. And as cliche as that sounds, honestly, it's really true. Like, for anybody who wants to achieve anything of massive success, I think is an absolute important thing to have this unbelievable desire of yourself, like this self-belief of yourself. And, a loss one day is okay, but continuing forward no matter what.
Absolutely. Yeah. And throughout this whole conversation, I think persistence is going to be a very, very common theme. I'm interested in your early story, and I want to understand what about your early story and the difficulties that you had in your early childhood and your adolescence, and how did they develop or influence your entrepreneurial mindset? Yeah.
I mean, early was young, bro. Like it was tough. So I moved to the U.S. when I was 8 years old from Morocco. American dream. Mom and dad wanted a better life. As an only child. And at the age of 8, my parents separated. Mom remarried into another relationship, and I was abused for 10 years. So for 10 years of my life, I was abused. No father figure, but also I was beaten emotionally, physically, and every day for 10 years, I'd come home and be like, "Clean your fucking room, turn the lights off." Imagine that as a kid. It was tough. So that was a really tough chapter in my life, but I always had hope to one day build something for yourself and escape that. And not only escape, but thrive. And then also to be able to take care of the people that are closest to you. So I really do believe, honestly, I think we all know this, but it's absolutely true that whatever difficult situation you're going through is really an opportunity, is really a gift if you see it from that lens. And unfortunately, most young people especially, they are maybe in a tough situation, whatever that may be, they don't frame it in that way. They look at it like, why me, why me, why me as the victim versus what happens if I overcome this? What happens if I go through this and get to the other side? Who am I going to become and what am I going to achieve? And it's not so much what you achieve. For me, it's always been what you become and who you become. It's always who you become versus what you achieve. And,
who you become versus what you achieve. Yeah, I completely agree. So it's the character that you show. Yeah, no one wants to be worth $1 billion and be a horrible person, have a horrible character, right?
Yeah.
So how important to you is having that character, but also having symbolization around you or symbols around you of success, but also reminding you of where you've come from and the things that you stand for?
Yeah. No, good question, bro. So you're probably watching the podcast and you're like, for you guys that don't know me, I told you about the stick before the podcast. So symbolism is everything. And here I carry a walking stick with a eagle on the top. It's a cane and there might be a knife inside. No, symbolism is everything because it just represents your story, especially when you went through a long journey. You went your whole life through something. And you want to go back and have something that represents you and tells your story to others that get to know you and interact with you. Just like now, you're getting to know me, but also you're understanding there's depth to the story as well. So I think having things with some kind of symbolism tells a story, and also it's something that can be passed down for generations. Think about something that's yours with your initials, with your brand, and has a story and meaning. Just like back in the day, old kings would have a crest, and they would give their strongest sons or children or relatives or friends some relics that they can keep beyond. And it tells a story for ages and generations. And many people are very singular-minded. They're just thinking about achievement in this one generation versus many generations in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just thinking about one generation. Yeah, I like that a lot. I think people are too quick to look forward as well, and they're not looking at like what they're actually enjoying now and what they've got right now. Yeah. And so, for you to take you back, you just touched on working at McDonald's, right? Was that the first example of what hard work was to you in terms of like a job or a job setting?
Yeah. Oh, it was fucking tough, man. McDonald's sucked. It's super fast paced. I was just talking with Jan the other day, my videographer, about like fast paced settings. That was a very fast paced setting, but very simple. So like let's say you're doing fries, you're making the fries at McDonald's. They're not hiring the most intelligent person in the world. It's like 4 steps. Okay, press a button, heat the the fryer, put the fries in, wait until the beep, click a button, salt it, done. It's just cut and paste. But yeah, man, like it was a great experience because it taught you fast pace and taught you to deal with stress and like many orders going on at once. And that honestly, even though I wasn't paid well for it, I learned a lot through those experiences being in a fast paced environment. So for a lot of guys maybe watching, if you're watching, taking a dead end job that is maybe fast paced, there's a lesson to learn. Maybe you're learning some skills, you're learning, how to be in a kitchen, you're learning some sales skills, you're learning customer support. Like every experience that led up to me building Smarter Contact, which is a multi-8-figure, 9-figure business, I had to do all the wax on, wax off Mr. Miyagi shit for a lot of years of this stuff that didn't pay me well, but paid me more in skills.
100%. One of our first ever guests on this podcast, a lady called Marianne Page, and she ran McDonald's Europe for 27 years. And she said that one of the best things they did was when you hire someone from McDonald's, on day 1, they will make the fries. On day 2, they will teach someone else how to make the fries. And so I'm sure there's some parts to your story there where you're saying what you learned. And I'm sure systemization for the business that you now have is massive, right? So even back then, how old were you at McDonald's?
16.
So at 16, you were in one of the biggest companies in the world, learning systems, SOPs. Yes. Isn't that incredible?
It's insane. Yeah, it's insane. I actually applied a lot of those principles when I built smartercontact.com. Of just keeping it simple system, and you don't need the smartest people. Some people just, you have entry-level work and jobs, you can give them those entry-level jobs, but you just create a clear system and people follow it and the job gets done.
Yeah. What was it like then moving to the US and growing up in the US in terms of the differences, the cultural differences, and maybe the opportunities or the different challenges you faced in the biggest economy in the world?
Yeah. I mean, a lot, man. I moved not knowing English.
Oh, okay.
And I moved to Brooklyn. The first time in my life, I'd never seen a black person in my whole life.
Yeah, for sure.
I go to Brooklyn, and I'm the only sort of white looking kid in the school. So with spoke no English, that was interesting. That was back in 1996. I was 8 years old back then. But yeah, man, it's an adaptation. And I think anywhere you're thrown in the mix and you're different, you have to adapt. And what does that make you? It really forces you to grow and level up and adapt to your surroundings. And every time you change your surrounding, and I've done that multiple times in my life, moving around different countries, going places where I can't speak the language, it's forced you to grow. And I think that's the representation of why I have this eagle here. And it's something where it's a foreign environment, but it forces you to level up.
Yeah. I remember one of our mentors on the podcast called Daniel Priestley, was one of his first bits of advice to us when we started a business was just get comfortable being uncomfortable and get in every single room. And I guess moving to America from Morocco, not speaking the language, is probably one of the most difficult personal development journeys you could go on.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And so how long did it take you before you felt settled in the country?
Yeah, I mean, I adapted quick, bro. I don't know, maybe it's genetics, but I figured it out. I was adapting, learning how to do stuff. But I'll tell you, I fast forwarded when I was 18. I was in an abusive childhood. I moved out to a university completely on the other side of the country because I needed to get fresh space to work on myself. And not many people do that, where they're so complacent in what they're doing. They have their friend group, they have their their relationship or business or whatever, and they're at best okay. If not, they're struggling. They're like, people are dragging them down. And a lot of people just are too complacent and they don't have the courage to leave. And what I say to anybody that is considering it, maybe if someone's watching, that maybe I can help, at least from my experience, which is that honestly, uncomfort is actually one of the things that can help grow you, and it's an opportunity. And certainly leaving the country has opened up a lot of doors for me. And the other thing is you can always come back, right? But a lot of times in life, one of the best things you can do is get outside of your comfort zone, try something new, take that chance, go for that business, travel, whatever the case may be, and remove anything that's holding you back. Absolutely.
Almost like take the opportunity when you see it, but be aware of what might be around you that's fundamentally holding you back from other things. Yeah. What was it that you went to university to study when you were in the US?
International business.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So at what point did you start your tech business?
That was a lot of years later. So I started the tech business in 2019. So that was many years later. So after college, I knew that most millionaires were made in real estate. Yep. So I started doing real estate deals, buying and flipping properties. We called it wholesaling. Did that for 7 years, and doing that, I learned business. I wasn't making a bunch of money, but I was learning skills, right? You're picking up skills, doing some deals. I was maybe making $100K a year max, doing okay. But then I learned skills, and then eventually I found an opportunity in real estate that needed to be solved. So I was like, holy shit, no one's doing this. Googled it, doesn't exist. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I go on Upwork and I find some guy from China to build me some really simple software to add to my own business. So I was like, well, if I add this to my business, I can do more deals. I started making more deals, and I'm like, well, this is awesome. I built a really high-tech shovel that I can get more gold than everybody else. And then the idea snapped in my head. I was like, well, instead of digging for the gold, why don't I, with this really nice shovel, instead of digging for the gold with a nice shovel, why don't I sell the shovel? So I sold the tool versus digging for the gold. And that's where things started to take off for me with smarter contacts.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's exactly the same as the American gold rush, isn't it? The guys that made all the money were the guys selling the pickaxes, not the ones digging for the gold.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So before we touch on smarter contacts, I think it's interesting just to lay the groundwork, right? Because you also, after spending so much time in the US and potentially having the opportunities or having some opportunities, you renounced your citizenship.
Yeah.
Just talk me through the thinking behind doing that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I was a Moroccan-born citizen by origin, naturalized to the U.S. when I was younger through my parents, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity that the U.S. gave me. As a foreigner coming there, it really gave me the opportunity and the chances to be someone successful. Also, really grateful for a lot of great people. Americans are some of the best people I've ever met. Like really, really solid people. But I have, I just a lot of shit with the government I disagree with, the history and some of this stuff, and yeah. So like the direction where some things going, like politically, and the associations, like government associations, I'm not a fan of. Love Trump, by the way. Yeah, obviously for financial reasons, taxes, things like that might play in a factor. And I'm not planning to go there anytime soon. So for me, just more of like when you look at the pros and cons of any decision, anytime I'm making a major decision, I list out all of the pros, all of the cons, and I look at it from a perspective, are the cons or pros outweighing? And the cons heavily outweighed the pros. And then also I was able to purchase a passport internationally. I purchased a Caribbean passport, which allows me the visa-free access and travel that the US passport had. So I'm like, okay, well, what's left? Like, okay, I can get protection from the embassy, and I can fly to Miami, if I want to for a vacation. Cool. But then I have to pay all this tax money, all this liability, and I don't feel free. So the ultimate goal, at least for me, just like in this bird, is a free bird. My favorite song. And I want to be free, and being tied to a specific jurisdiction under their rules, having to play a certain board game and being tied to the rules of those board game by association, by being a citizen, doesn't allow me real freedom, because I feel real freedom is being an independent state, being yourself, and tied to the jurisdictions legally that serve you best, not the other way around.
I like that. I read a book probably 6 years ago called The Nomad Capitalist.
Yeah.
Have you read that one? The green cover.
Jordan Henderson, I think.
Yes. Yeah. And he basically is like, why did we all live in the same town as our parents, use the same bank as our parents, do the same thing? And
bullshit.
It's exactly right.
It's slave-minded.
Exactly.
It's truly slave-minded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was interesting there, you just mentioned, is the lists, right? The pros and cons list. You've got a business now that we'll touch on, in a moment, where the valuation is over 100 mil.
I hope around that. 50 to 100. I maybe stretch it to 100, but 50 to 100.
50 to 100. Okay, pretty good either way. How has the notion of the pros and cons list and your decision-making process from back in the day when you were talking about renouncing your citizenship or anything you might have done, university, how to start in real estate, how has that decision-making process and the pros and cons list you just touched on helped you to build that company to where it is today?
How did the pros and cons list of what help?
Your decision-making processes over the time you must have learned a way to make good decisions back to back.
Yeah. Honestly, bro, I just wanted to make money. I wanted freedom. So when I first came up with the idea, I was like, oh, this is, I think this has an opportunity. This has legs on it. And then once I took it to market, I started to make some sales, but I was still doing real estate as well as my primary. And then once the sales started coming in even more, I looked at my real estate business and I said, okay, I could keep focusing on both, but at what point is it going to make sense for me to focus fully on Smarter Contact? And when my revenue exceeded with Smarter Contact what I was making with real estate, I just went all in on the software and went all that. So yeah, I mean, with any critical decision, whether it's a relationship, a friendship, a business deal, just literally write it out. As simple as it is, write it out on a piece of paper, and a lot of times you're going to find a lot of hidden things you didn't think about to factor in your decision making, short term and long term. So every major decision, I write it out on a piece of paper, and I write down all of the factors associated with that decision, and it helps me make more effective decisions, especially long term.
It's actually funny. We just had Dan Henry on before, who you just bumped into in the corridor, a mutual friend, and we spoke a little bit about the industry of relationships, because it's actually one of the biggest industries in the world. Everyone wants to talk about marketing and business, but actually relationships are a massive one. And his book recommendation that he wanted everyone to listen or read was about relationships. And he was like, read the book and read it when you're thinking about relationships, and then go back and read it again and change the word relationship to customer. And it's almost a similar thing to what you're saying there, right? The way to actually look through something is to read between the lines and make a decision based on what is going to benefit you now, rather than just trying to take it at face value and not read between the lines.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
Back to back, two people said a very, very similar thing. So smarter contacts, right? So I don't think many people listening to this will understand or are using or utilizing well SMS marketing.
Right.
So could you just fundamentally talk us through the basics of what smarter contacts does and why there was such a gap in the market?
Yeah. So back in the day, what I was looking at was the attention economy, right? So you look at people's attention and where people's attention is. And there's one thing we're glued on, which is this thing. Everybody's got a phone on them at all times, right? So I got it on my table here, but everyone's got a phone on them at all times. And when I'm doing messaging for real estate deals, I was thinking like, okay, I can send email campaigns, but people don't really care about email. You could send direct mail, but it's not as effective. But people are glued to the phone 24/7. So if I can be in front of their place of attention, then I'm in the right place. So that's where your customers are hanging out. So when you look at SMS or anything mobile marketing, that's where your customers are hanging out, and they're using that device constantly. So that's why we were successful, because traditional marketing in real estate wasn't really involving SMS, and I built that infrastructure to garner attention of customers. Now, I guess for anybody watching that is considering it, just look at where the your consumer is spending time. A lot of them are. Mobile marketing is one of the most efficient ways to get attention, especially at scale.
Okay, so I think this is really interesting, because in the UK, I don't think there's much SMS marketing at all. Or at least I would never privy to it. Whereas
The rules
in Dubai,
are different. The rules are different.
Okay, so in Dubai, you get a lot of SMS and WhatsApp. As soon as they've got your data, they're going to send you a message. Via email, if I get a spam email, I don't get that annoyed by it. I just delete it. Or they've now put on the Gmail, there's a one button, unsubscribe. You just click unsubscribe and gone. If I get an SMS, I find it slightly more annoying. I find it slightly more intriguing. Oh, sorry, not intriguing. Invasive, I guess.
Invasive, yeah.
Because I guess my reaction, as soon as my phone lights up, I'll look at it. Whereas an email, I'm not going to be notified. I'll get it later. How do you manage that unsubscribing and irritation?
Yes. Yeah, that's the first thing. I mean, we take that very seriously. I mean, there's an opt-out list where you have to opt out.
Yeah.
And every customer that uploads, they have to upload opted-in data. Yeah. So the data has to be opted in to some kind of check-in form, that kind of thing. So the customers are generally opted in to some check-in form. Maybe they've subscribed to some real estate newsletter, and then you can send them a follow-up message. And we take it very seriously. If someone says, "Don't contact me," there's filtration for that. I would never contact that person again.
Yeah.
So there's definitely regulation and best practices for that kind of setup.
So if someone's listening to this and they're not using SMS marketing, what would you say they should be looking at as a fundamental just way to start using SMS?
Yeah, first of all, do you have a list that is opt-in or clean that you can send some kind of marketing to? That's the first thing, is the data. So it starts with the data. Do you have the phone number records? And do you have a list of people that are interested in buying whatever product that you have? It has to be targeted, right? I'm not going to send like a text to like a bunch of, old people or something about some product, like buying like basketball shoes or something. You know what I mean? It's got to be a congruent audience. Once you have that, using a good tool that'll help you distribute that at scale.
Do you think you have to be more targeted than with an email campaign?
It helps. It definitely helps, but you can do, I'd say it's about the same. It's about the same. You're going to get similar result. If it's targeted, you're going to get a high return on it. If it's not targeted, then you're going to get a lot of shit. But with SMS, probably you're going to want to be more targeted, correct? Yes.
I just think it's a really interesting thing that people are just not, in my experience, people aren't using very well or even at all. Yeah. And obviously your business is 6 years old.
Yeah.
50 plus staff.
Yeah.
Growing quickly, right? Which is what we're talking about, the valuations and whatnot. What do you think has been a deciding factor on the growth of that business? Like, how has it gone from starting to where it is now within like 5.5, 6 years? So
first is product market fit. So I look at, are you actually selling something that's needed in the market or not? And when I built Smarter Contact, there was a massive need for it.
Yeah.
And then once you have product market fit, especially in SaaS, that's a very common term, then you expand on the value proposition for that customer. So like that customer begins to love your product and makes it like an indispensable part of their business. So that's what I did. I really focused on the R&D side. I mean, we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on R&D, which means like developers, like the coders and guys that build the software. So I kept improving the core product as a platform, kept improving it. And then I put really solid and capable leaders around on the executive team that not only supported the vision, but people I trusted, and I trusted their decision making. So, if you let your company go, I mean, now we're almost 70 employees, and if you put your company in the hands of somebody else, you have to really trust that person and also trust their decision making to make effective decisions while you're gone, even when you're out of the room. And that takes time, and fortunately, I've been able to find that person that has helped us grow, even after I stepped down last year.
Yeah, I read a story about the company where in the early days you had a developer who tried to take all the code and sort of disappear.
That sucked, man. That was a really rough time.
Yeah. Yes, and it almost put the business on the brink of collapse.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that? And then I guess how did you then put these frameworks in place to make sure it didn't happen again?
Yeah. So I'll tell the brief version of that story. So when I first built smartercontact.com, I think we were generating in the first 6 months like $30,000 a month or something. And I bounced out of the US. I was going through a really dark time in my life, breaking up with my girlfriend. I had, some troubles personally. And I just was like, you know what, I'm out. Let me just start new, like just completely get rid of this life that I have and see how I can rebuild myself and my business and everything else. So I moved to Argentina. As soon as I move, the only developer who was building Smarter Contact just goes MIA, like just out of nowhere. So every day, we're normally talking every day on chat, whatever, building the app, and he's just gone. Next day, nothing. Next day, nothing. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Where you at?
Wow.
Anyway, to this day, I haven't heard from him. So he was the only person who had the keys to the kingdom of the entire application. He was the only developer that I had or could afford at the time. So I hired, I just went online, bro. I was just scrappy and I had no choice. And I was like, okay, if I don't figure this out, everything I built is gone. So I found a development agency in Eastern Europe to just take over. They did their best. It took several years to try to catch up on some of the stuff he was doing. No documentation, but we figured it out. But this is life, bro. Like this is how things happen. Things don't happen in your favor. Like you're gonna get bad luck. You're gonna get things like this happen, but it's really more how you respond. So adversity is something that's normal, but really is a test of your character of how you can respond. And most people in that circumstance, they wouldn't be able to figure that out, and they'd be like, okay, well, not meant to be. They would try something, it wouldn't work. I just was relentless in that situation, be like, we're gonna figure this out. And fortunately, we found the right people to take care of it.
Yeah.
Pause. Sorry, it's me, Freddie, interrupting myself. I just want to point out how well this guest is doing at building trust with you, the audience. They're adding value, they're giving inspiration, and they're hopefully educating you on a few different areas. You see, we're in a trust recession, and becoming a podcast guest is literally the best way to continue to build trust while so many are struggling. We've built a community of incredible entrepreneurs, all becoming the top most in-demand podcast guests in the world. And if you click some of our links below, not only have we got templates to help you become a top guest, we've also got a community that you can join to get yourself to where you want to be. Now back to the episode.
I mean, I couldn't imagine you having one guy and then he just literally disappears.
Yeah.
And you're like, my entire business, because obviously SaaS is really hard to grow because it's difficult to market. I guess it's a marketing platform, so you could use its own system to grow it. But for someone just to take off and sort of not respond, you almost feel like you've got nothing. It's just gone into the ether. So the resilience and the persistence, we'll come back to that word persistence, to sort of knuckle down and get over that hurdle must have been incredibly difficult.
Yeah, like I said this before in another podcast, but like dying is not an option. Failing genuinely is not an option, and I would just never quit. I'd never quit, genuinely. So yeah, so we figured it out. We were very lucky. It took a while. Like it took a while, but fortunately we had like money coming in and customers that were paying us, that were funding it. I had no outside capital. So like we didn't have VCs or investors that were funding the company.
Bootstrapped.
So I just bootstrapped it, and I was super scrappy. Like I was like, all right, cool. We have 20 grand coming in, like $1,000 in the bank and 20 grand in expenses. You know what I mean? Like that kind of lifestyle for a while, you know, keeping lean on the expenses, living in South America. I was in Argentina, so my expenses weren't super high. I was just, you know, cutting capital and cutting expenditures. But also too, it's a good lesson for a lot of younger founders. You don't have to go live in, you know, Dubai or San Francisco, unless you're actually going to leverage Dubai or San Francisco for your startup, right? Yeah. So are you making money from Dubai or New York or San Francisco or Miami or whatever? So if you're in an early stage, go somewhere that's more congruent with you're at, unless you can capitalize on the networking or the business or bringing some more in.
Do you think that's why so many people go to like Bali, because you've got a good network, but it's very cheap to live?
Yeah.
Whereas Dubai is the other way around. You can have a good network if you can break into it, but it's expensive to live.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. And so when you were looking at growing a SaaS, because obviously everyone's trying to create a SaaS now. Everyone thinks they can just start something on Replit or whatever, and they can sell it to everyone. And you really realize very quickly that to market a SaaS is hard. You can't really just put loads of ad spend behind it. You've got to show that it works and it's going to make people money. So what was if there was at all, was there something that clicked where you went, this is the way to take this to market? Or to grow through the market?
Yeah, I mean, I was essentially going to my competitors. I was going to other offices that did real estate, and I was like, hey, I got this really cool product. Try it out for free and use it, and just tell me what's wrong with it. And they were like, dude, we love it. Like they love the product. So yeah, just going to your competitors, man. Like if you're going to build a SaaS, like I would go to your friends and people who are deep in that space and asking them to use it and really give you some live feedback.
What I love about SaaS founders is that there's no real way around just solving the problem for someone. You know, like if someone has like a coaching business or an agency or whatever, there's ways around where they'll just try and be really good at marketing, get you in, take some money. It doesn't really work. And then they like, okay, the churn's just high because we're not actually good at what we do. It's the opposite with SaaS. Like it has to do the thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to retain somebody long term, it has to work, right? It has to work. So yeah, I mean, and that goes for building a good product. Our best marketing is our customers. So like Steve Jobs said this before, which is your top 10% of customers are going to refer you and do all of your marketing. So like if your product is in the top 10% or even top 5%, it's going to generate a lot more customers just from that kind of marketing, and also on the polar end of that. So if your product super sucks, everyone's going to talk about it too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean that. I've got so many questions for that, but I don't think it's actually worth jumping in because it's a minefield, isn't it? Like literally just make a really good product and then your customers will tell you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the best marketing, is if you make a really good product, that's generally going to be the best marketing your product can have.
Which ironically, if you went back and read, I mean, Dan Henry literally just said this. He was like, if you went back and read marketing books from 50 years ago, they basically say, make a really good product or service and then it will be fine.
Yes.
Whereas nowadays it's the opposite. It's like just try and say a few things to drive people towards your terrible service and then don't worry about it not being good.
I think the economy is getting washed up from that because a lot of people are getting scammed left and right and buying bullshit products. So people are becoming much more aware. Even now in this economy, people are much more aware of the phony guys who are too flashy or trying to fake it and then sell some scammy product versus like a real quality product. So people, even the younger generation, is much more clued into that because it's been oversaturated, especially on Instagram.
100%. I think we're in a massive trust recession.
Yes.
Like people do not trust anyone anymore. Yeah. Something that I think is really important actually off the back of just talking about trust is authenticity and is, like you said, getting in the room and being comfortable, getting uncomfortable. How beneficial was it to you to learn 4 additional languages to your first language in getting in that room and expanding your global mindset whilst building a global 9-figure business?
Bro, why not? Like, why not? I mean, if you're going to travel the world, like, why not pick up the language? If you're going to go to, Serbia or Russia or somewhere else, like, make an attempt to at least say hi, nice to meet you, how are you, the basic simple shit. Because people are at least they're gonna understand you don't speak it natively or naturally, but they at least respect that you took the time to know the simple greetings where are you from? How are you? Nice to meet you. Like, this stuff goes a long way. So every country I go to, I spend 30 minutes and I go through the basic sayings. How are you? Nice to meet you. Thank you. You're welcome. Please. Like, all the basic stuff in it, and it becomes like a game, and it's actually fun. So I've taken some languages a little bit further. Currently, I speak 5 languages: English, French, Spanish, Moroccan Arabic, and Russian. Not all at a high level, but doing my best. But it's fun, man, because you can build really genuine relationships, and I think the more you know, the more of an interesting person you are. And especially in certain conversations, if I meet a Russian businessman and I can have some basic level conversation, I have a lot more trust.
100%. I mean, it's a similar thing, right? To like a podcast. If you'd come in, I don't know anything about you, you immediately have that tiny bit of friction of like, this could be a complete waste of time. If you go to another country and you haven't bothered to learn how to say hello, thank you, can I have a drink or whatever, like, it just shows that sort of naivety of not being that into whatever you're doing or wherever you're going. I think it's really, really interesting. The only place I think that hasn't necessarily worked, maybe for an Englishman, is France. I went to uni in France for 6 months, learn French, and as soon as I'd start, they'd be like, we'll just do English. Maybe I was terrible, but I think in actual fact they're just
the French aren't the nicest. That's just true. The French generally aren't the nicest with these kind of things with that. But yeah, man, it's fun. And it could be a game. I mean, there's applications you can use, Duolingo, whatever, just have some fun with it. But I think you're marked as a man by your achievements, and achievements in different areas, not just achievements financially. That's the way we all look at it, but we're also marked in ways that, what you've achieved outside, what your skills, maybe you're a great sportsman, or you've achieved some record in doing something, speaking multiple languages. Those are the things that people remember. Those are the things that people remember, not, just how much money you made.
I really like that. The mark of a man is, how much stress you can take on without it affecting people around you as well, to a certain extent. Talking of achievements, you've achieved a lot by your mid-30s, and last year you retired from your company effectively. What does that look like? What does retirement mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to be this like incredible time in my life, chilling, doing nothing, and having all the the money to go where you want. And honestly, man, I was pretty depressed. I had a villa in Croatia for the summer. I moved my mom there as well, and my girl at the time. And I was really bored without something to do. Like, I didn't have any meetings anymore. I didn't have anything to do. I just wake up, okay, I guess I'm going to go to the beach now. I'm going to go to the restaurant now. And I genuinely, inside of me, I felt old. Like, I felt really old in my kind of demeanor and my mindset. So I was like, all right. A couple months of that went by, and I said, I got to get back to work. So even now, I'm not necessarily doing as much on the business. I'm doing some business stuff, but really growing as a person. So investing in different areas, right? So for example, becoming the best boxer I can become, or the best swimmer I can become. Last month, I climbed the tallest mountain in Africa, doing all types of different stuff and just developing, not just financially. And this is, I think a lot of people make this mistake, is you go from, you make $10 million and then you want to make 100, and then you want to make $1 billion, and then you make when does it fucking stop? When is enough? And people just look at the financial side of success, and I don't agree that's right. Once you've had enough, cool, continue to invest a bit more to make that grow, but why not look at all the skills that you didn't have time for while you were sacrificing to build your business?
Do you think success is misunderstood?
Vastly misunderstood. Yes, because we look at it monetarily. We look at it, how much money did you make? What's your revenue? We look at a billionaire. We glorify a billionaire. Everybody says, oh, I'm meeting a billionaire. The level of respect that gets is insane. But I've met a lot of rich people that I don't respect, and people that are way better off than me, but their wife tells them what to do. With all due respect, that's not a patriarchal mindset. They're out of shape. They're just not a respectable person outside of their bank account. And I've met a lot of those examples where I can't respect this person, and I don't even want them around me.
I think I completely agree. And there's a great story about a guy whose hero is Elon Musk, and he He tried for a long time to meet him, went to all of his conferences, and you might have seen him, he stands up in a conference and tries to speak to Elon Musk, and he sort of ignores him. And he finally meets him, and the guy, he was interviewed after, and they said, what was it like meeting your hero? And he said, he's a bit of a weird guy, he's a bit rude, he's a bit weird. And it got back to Elon Musk, and Elon Musk said, I'm worth 300 billion, I work 23 hours a day, I want to colonize Mars. Did you really think I was going to be a normal guy?
Right.
And it just comes down to like what normal looks like. But actually, by putting people on pedestals, to your billionaire point, there's so much more about a person. Their character is so much more important than I think their monetary status. And you're right, we say I'm a billionaire on the podcast. Yeah. Actually, it's maybe the best interviewer was someone who makes 10 grand a month or whatever, exactly. Maybe 10 grand a year, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Also, what I learned is money is very valuable and very rare to people who don't have any.
Yeah.
So the people who put the billionaire on the pedestal are the people who are broke. And
True.
The more money you make, the more money you actually have, you actually value money less. I mean, you still value it, but the perceived value of money is less. And like how much respect I give to somebody who's a billionaire is going to be much less because I've already made money. And I respect their achievement, but I look at the whole picture, not just one single facet of their success.
It's just the scorecard at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What do you think are your highest values right now as someone who's got to where they'd like to be and is spending more time on themselves?
Courage to be yourself, to speak your mind and not be afraid what anybody else thinks about you, and being yourself. So absolutely, courage, I think, is something that a lot of people lack. Authenticity to yourself, and authenticity is just a human being, and it goes hand in hand with courage. Just values. I mean, there's honestly just genuine values of integrity, of certain lines. And this goes to another point, a slight of attention, but at this point in my life, there's not a single person that I'm not willing to get rid of my life if they cross the line, whether that's friends or family, or closest mates. You set a line of yourself for respect, and if that line is crossed, you address it. Crossed again, hey, please don't do that. And it keeps happening. At some point, you're ready to sever because your line is so strong. And eventually, you're going to get rid of some people, but it's actually going to tighten the relationship with certain people long term.
Do you think, I agree with that. Do you think that can be misunderstood by people? They think you've become different because of business or success.
That's even better. Yeah, like I have those people in my life. They're like, oh, Adam, you change, or you're too cold. Or I'm like, well, no, not really. Just my standards are very high. So if that doesn't suit you, that's great. That's all well and good. Just stay over there, and I'll still wish you Merry Christmas. But people who don't approve of you, or they don't support you, or support your values, that's their life. But they can't force that on you to hold their completely different and my view, very low values on our high standards.
And yeah, I completely agree. And to your courage point, what do you think someone can do if they're listening to this and they feel like they have a lack of courage, or they're not sure how to test their courage? What as a founder, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, just go do hard shit, honestly. Like as cliche as that sounds, like do some hard shit and level up. It depends if this is a woman or a man. I think the advice is a bit different for both, but at least from my experience, I had to eat shit for a lot of years. And I was kind of a pussy when I was a kid. I was beaten up, I was scrawny, I was skinny, didn't know how to defend myself. But I had to intentionally look at it for what it was. I'd look myself in the mirror and I'm like, dude, you're not about it. You're not there. Like, you don't deserve respect yet. And I would have to go do the hard stuff, the hard trainings, the hard events. And I had to callous my brain and callous my body, everything. So intentional difficulty, I think, is one of the greatest gifts that any person can actually have. So some of the best leaders of the world were soldiers, if you look at it. Some of the best, like, free world leaders actually went through something difficult, and the ones who inherited it are the ones who are actually causing the problems. Some of the best business people are fighters, so like the fighter mentality. A lot of those guys, they got punched in the face, they have to do those long trainings. Those guys built the character and the mental resilience that they can later apply to other areas. So I think physically and going through some hard training, I think can help build that.
Interesting. Okay, so it's not just being in uncomfortable situations mentally, but it's also genuinely physical. Go and climb a mountain or start kickboxing or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so what kind of fighting or stuff have you been doing recently? You mentioned you've been learning boxing.
I got my rib cracked like 2 weeks ago. So
yeah, it wasn't the Andrew Tate thing, was it, in TKMA?
No. That was a few weeks ago. I just was with some friends and sparring a good friend of mine, and he hit me with a hook. But fighting I've just been doing a few years, but I've been training a lot, just different stuff. I mean, I do different sports, swimming. I just started boxing a few years ago. I climbed Kilimanjaro last month. Just woke up and I decided to climb the highest mountain in Africa.
The same week?
Yeah, same day.
Are you already in Africa?
No, I literally just
You flew from
was
Dubai.
in Dubai, and same day I was like, I feel like climbing a mountain. Bought like $4,000 worth of equipment, fly out to Africa, and the next day I was on a mountain.
No way.
Yeah.
How long did it take to climb?
Like 5 days.
Wow.
But it normally takes 8.
Yeah.
So I normally you need to train for a few months, but it's a mindset. It's a mindset thing. And this goes back to toughening the mind. I already had everything. I was already retired, chilling. I got my cars and all the stuff, and I was like, Adam, are you really about it? I need to prove it to myself. So once a year, a couple times a year, I need to do something difficult to remind yourself, what you can do. So
I can't remember the name, but there's a really nice Japanese philosophy where it's like is it Misoji? It might be Misoji. Like once a year, do something really, really physically challenging that then for the rest of the year you will remember.
Yeah.
You remember that you really pushed yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it makes all your training worth it, right? Because you're like, I could go and do that now if I wanted to. Adam, I'm interested in your take on the raw realities of what it takes to become quote unquote successful, whatever that means to someone listening to this. Like, what does it actually take? It's all on Instagram. It all looks very nice, and there's the cars, and people are on beaches, whatever. This is not you. This is just anyone in general. What does it actually take to build a business to a decent size?
Well, it takes a lot of belief in yourself. That's what a lot of people don't tell you. So believing genuinely in yourself, no matter what, is, I think, one of the most underrated things that people need to believe in, need to develop. So that's, I think, fundamental. And then once you believe in yourself, find the real problem. If you're talking about business, find the real problem of that needs to be solved in business, and then putting the right people around you to help you achieve that goal. So there's a lot of different steps in the process. If we're talking about the realities of success, I think success is completely it's viewed in the wrong way, and it's viewed in the wrong metric. People, again, look at it from the money side of things, but real success is taking care of your family, being a strong person who's trustworthy, who can guide their people around them. Success is being remembered. Even after one day you die, you pass away, people still remember what you did, not the fun times you had at the bar, or any kind of silly stuff, the concert you went to, but really like what you've achieved and what you were able to provide for the next future generations. Legacy, I think, is very important. That's, I think, to me, a definition of success. It's just not the money, because if you strip me of my money, I have many more things that are much more valuable than that, which is my achievements and what I've done for people around the world.
Yeah, and I think to that point, I think most people that we meet who have created good net worth, they have that courage that you mentioned, and the confidence and the character that they know if it all was taken away tomorrow, they could build something very decent again in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
Whereas someone who's never built anything before, they don't believe that. So they think if everything gets taken away now, they can't come back from it, right? Which is the same thing as, I don't know if you've seen the Alex Hormozy, it might have been Alex Hormozy quote, where he was talking about if someone comes to him, it might have been a Charlie Munger, I think. If someone comes to him and says, this is my new startup, but before I show you the plan, I need you to sign the NDA. Whereas a startup that comes to them and goes, here's everything, just do you think it will work? Shows them everything, the financials. He would always go with the one that doesn't want to sign the NDA, because he knows the person that has not asked him to be secretive has more confidence in the fact that if this works, it works. If it doesn't, I can do something else. There's probably nothing secret or nothing that high value in a real startup.
So he would go with the guy with no NDA.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
The guy that's just like, what do you think? Let's go. Here's the transparency. Here's everything I know. He's like, you can copy it if you want. You can probably go faster than me, but I'm here. It's my idea. I can start it.
Right.
What would be your take on that?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm selecting someone to work with, like in business, I want someone who's transparent. And I also lead with transparency as well. So I show them that I can be transparent and vice versa, versus someone who's going that route. Also, they're showing you that what else are they secretive about? If they're making you sign an NDA, then there's something else that they're having in private conversation. So you want to work with people who are transparent, who aren't going to have side conversations, to try to get a better end of the deal. So yeah, when you're working with people, generally people who are open, goes a long way.
Because you must have hired, if you've got a team of 70, right? You've probably hired over 100 in your career.
Hundreds.
Hundreds, there you go.
Yeah, I probably fired 300 people.
There you go.
At least.
So you've been through all the hiring thing, and you've also, like you say, you've got a close network of friends or whatever. What do you look for in a person? And I'm assuming someone in your circle, inner circle, has a similar set of values to someone you want to be in your business.
So what do I look for in a person? Are we talking about a general employee, leadership?
Someone that is within contact of you.
Within regular contact?
They could be an employee, they could be a friend. I'm presuming they have a similar set of values.
Especially with somebody who's within contact of me, like I don't talk to everyone in my company. I talk to maybe 2 or 3, even in my company. But somebody's in contact with me, they have to have similar principles of being straightforward. Like, this is the brown table. I'm not going to say, oh, it's orange or some bullshit, right? Like, just black or white, and just not being afraid of offending people. Like, people are just completely truthful, transparent. I don't like people who are like in our company, we don't have some DEI initiatives or some, we don't have enough racial, we don't care. We just care about who's going to get the job done the best. That's really what it is. And we pay the best by the people who get the job done the best. And that's it. That's the goal. We're there to make money, provide a service, and help our customers do well. And by inverse, we're getting paid well. It's that simple. So we just want to achieve that goal. We're not trying to, be friendly, buddy, but at the same time, we build an incredible culture within the company. So the company culture is very good. When I look for people, I look for people who are transparent, excellent communicators, people who are proactive. So people who think outside the box. I'm sure for you too, you've seen this too, but you want to work with people. If they say they fill a role, they're thinking about every single way that even you're not thinking about, of what's missing, what could be improved. Even when you're not looking, your eyes are turned, they're like, oh, hey, we can improve this and this. I saw this. Here's my plan. And they can even take it the next step is like, this is the issue, and I can suggest these 3 steps. I like this one the best because, and it'll take this long. Like showing initiative. Yeah, for sure. Because in any business, nothing's perfect. There's never perfection. There's always gaps, and the people who can think ahead of time for you, they bring a ton of value, and by inverse, you can reward them long term.
Yeah, I completely agree. If in our business, if you have someone that follows SOPs, to the exact letter, that's brilliant. But actually, the person that can go above and beyond and think proactively and add something new to that is invaluable. Yeah. And I think it's becoming more difficult in this day and age. When you hire someone, they want to be told almost exactly what to do. To find that person that's above and beyond is more and more difficult.
Yeah. The question is, how do you screen for proactivity, right? It's like, how do you find that up front? I think in every position, there should be some kind of vetting period, like a trial period, and really see. Like I always tell people, you don't have the job. Like you have it a month from now or 3 months from now, but I want to see the first 30 days that you got the hang of this, and you could tell a lot in a month. So yeah, the first period I try to tell, but then also I do some screening up front to make sure that they're a fit for the position.
Yeah, so I think that's wicked. My last job before I started a business about 3 or 4 years ago, I actually got it in 2019. It was the world's largest digital publisher. They do like 4 billion a year, based in the UK. And I went in for the final interview with the CRO, and he was a really cool, quirky guy, really into rugby. Walks in with a coffee, sits down. I was already in there, in this table, a bit like this room. So he comes in, sits down, gives me a coffee, just slides it across the table. So he's assumed that I want something. And he goes, okay, cool, interview me, you've got an hour. And I was there in my suit, ready to be interviewed, revised all the questions. And he was like, let's go, so chat. And I had to ask him questions for an hour, not as like a set interview, which I had to think about things to talk about, almost like hold a conversation for an hour with him. So we spoke about rugby and whatever. And I thought that was, in my opinion, one of the best ways to screen for proactivity. Because someone else might have just sat there and gone, I have no idea what to say. I just think that's such a good way to, if you've got the time and you're that way inclined to be able to give that person the opportunity,
right,
it's a fairly good way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Adam, what is the greatest frustration that you see in the world at the moment, from your perspective, everything going on in your life?
Greatest frustration in my world or in the world as a whole?
In the world as a whole, but from your point of view.
Sadly, I came to this conclusion a few days ago that there's generally two types of humans on the planet. And this is just from my own experience and observation of data and just, the raw reality of things is I genuinely classify humans into two buckets: slaves and non-slaves. People who think for themselves or people who believe everything that they hear on the TV, on the news, on the history books, and everything that they read. So people who don't think for themselves they can't rationalize, and there's a lot of this going on. And they believe every single thing that their politician tells them, the history books tell them, the news tells them, hey, put on a mask or take this vaccine, or and they just take it. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, sounds good. But in reality, they don't actually think for themselves. And I think this is one of the biggest dangers to society, because when you have this in mass, when you have hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people that think exactly the same way and they trust without at least considering their own opinion. They've put away their own judgment. They've put away their own consciousness to defer to a higher one, which is their government or politician or the news or media. So I think this is one of the biggest dangers to society.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. I guess the question becomes, if people stop just blindly trusting the politicians and the news, how do you control the masses?
How do the news control the masses? They don't. Yeah. I mean, the more people that genuinely wake up. I mean, and it has to be waking up because you generally want to.
Yeah.
You actually want to. But some people are just so happy with their day-to-day life and their comfort that they'll never even question.
Yeah.
But it really just takes an intelligent understanding, not because somebody else influences you, but really caring for yourself, loving yourself so much that you're willing to question everything that's happening. And maybe you're right or maybe you're wrong, but at least have the courage to think for yourself versus...
I love that. Courage and persistence, the two themes of the conversation, right, which run through your values. Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your insight.
Brother. Of course, it's been a pleasure to be on. And,
thank you.
Happy to share the stick story as well. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to that episode. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I enjoyed speaking to that guest. If you scroll down now, you will find a link to our Healthy Hustle newsletter. There's more than 10,000 people receiving the newsletter every week, and it helps break down how to become a top podcast guest. It will also break down exactly what this guest that you've just listened to did to create such a great episode that you've just listened to. I hope it's helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.